Good morning, everybody. Going to continue on with our study of disciples and discipleship. We're going to look at the disciple named Philip this morning. Philip was only mentioned in the other Gospels one time. He was mentioned in Matthew chapter 10, where the whole list of all 12 were given. All the rest of the time that we hear anything or read anything that we know for sure about Philip, it was in the Gospel of John. So I wanted to dig into some of the less familiar disciples, kind of look at them and see what we could learn about them and maybe learn about ourselves. As we know, disciple, we talked about the definition of a disciple, and it's a close follower of an individual and one who adhered to the teaching of another. And that adhered, of course, means like stuck like glue, just like I said last Friday, stuck on your shoe like chewing gum. But anyway, wanted to go ahead and get into Philip. Philip was a Greek name. We know that Philip was a Jew, and more than likely had a Jewish name too, but the Bible didn't see fit to tell us what that was. So after Jesus found John, Andrew, and Simon Peter, and they, by the way, thought that they had found Jesus, but Jesus knew where they were, and Jesus, I believe, drew them to him. The very next day, we're told about his first interactions with Philip. Now, I'm going to read this, John chapter 1, and I'm going to read verses 43 through 45. The day following, and it's talking about the day after Jesus had met with the other three I just mentioned. The day following, Jesus would go forth into Galilee and findeth Philip and saith unto him, Follow me. Now Philip was of Bethsaida and the city of Andrew and Peter. And so that tells us where he lived, and he probably grew up with Andrew and Peter and probably worshiped with them at the synagogue. Anyway, verse 45 tells us, Philip findeth Nathanael and saith unto him, We have found him of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph. Well, let's see what we can learn from that. Well, like I said, Bethsaida was not, I don't think, a very big community. So evidently Nathaniel was from around there too, but we'll talk about him maybe a little later on. Those three verses we just read tell us a lot about Philip, if we just kind of dig into them and think a little bit. Number one, he immediately accepted the fact that Jesus was the Messiah. So certainly when he told him to follow him, then the first thing that he'd done is he set to work to lead other people to Jesus. He was so enamored with the things that about meeting Jesus, we're not told a whole lot about what Jesus said to him other than follow me. And evidently he was a willing follower, so he followed him. And so he went to Nathanael, but notice the reason that he was almost immediately aware that or accepted the fact that Jesus was the Messiah, because he told Nathanael that about the of whom Moses and the law and the prophets did write. So he had the word of the scripture in his heart, and he had evidently listened closely and learned the scripture, and he applied and realized when he was talking to Jesus that this had to be him. Well, why is that important? It's important that we read. I mean, Philip didn't have probably the ability to touch one of the scrolls that had the words of God in them, but he had sat in the synagogues and listened to the priest read them and explain them. And now we have it where we can very easily reach over and get it and study and dig into it anytime we want to. And we shouldn't take that for granted. But anyway, he had that in the word in his heart. He had something else in his heart too. He had the spirit of a witness. Now we need to ask ourselves, do we witness enough? Are we following the Lord closely enough that we should be witnessing? I want to tell you, I didn't get this done on Monday because I kept looking for something spectacular about Philip. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about him before I get off the rail here. Philip was a critical thinker. He was probably a fisherman because the Bible don't tell us that he was, but he was he was from Bethsaida, which was a fishing village, and he kept close company with Andrew, Peter, and even sometimes James and John. Those four, we're told by the Bible, were fishermen, and we know that toward the end of John, in chapter 21, there were 7 fishermen who there were 6 others joined Peter when he decided, I go a fishing after the resurrection of Christ. And that was when they were out there, fished all night, didn't catch anything. And they looked up and saw a man on the shore, and it just happened to be Jesus. Well, Jesus fed them breakfast that day, but that's a whole different lesson there. The reason I said he was a critical thinker is because Jesus, when just prior to feeding the 5,000, Jesus asked Philip, how shall we feed all these people? Well, the first thing Philip done was told Jesus, well, it's going to cost so much money, how many denarii in John chapter 6 and 5, and he just told him exactly what the cost was. Now, Jesus didn't ask him how they're going to feed all them people because he already knew. We know that he knew, but he asked Philip because he wanted Philip to learn something here. Now, Philip had already witnessed the miracle where Jesus turned the water into wine, the very first miracle at the wedding supper. Philip was stuck in the we can't thought process rather than he will make a way process at that time. And Jesus, I think, was trying to teach him and bring him out of that. And so, we get ourselves caught in that if we're not careful. We know the Lord will make a way for us because he's done it so many times before. We know that when we're down in the dumps and we're just down in the gullies, just trying to say, Lord, how in the world are we going to get out of this? If we'll stop and think back of all the other times that he's brought us through some things, and he's done some very outstanding miracles. There's no other way to describe it in our lives and the lives of others. And we get our hearts and our minds and wrapped around that, that helps us there. But, there again, we're just like Philip a lot of times. We get stuck in, well, I don't know how, rather than he's going to make a way. Another time there that Philip had to learn a little bit more. He had a lot of common sense just because, like I said, he just automatically, he remembered things, and he gets, sometimes gets stuck with, what we might call protocols or rules or whatever. And over there in John chapter 12, and it's surprising me how many times this comes back to Andrew, where the Greeks showed up and wanted to meet Jesus. And these were people that were really wanting to talk to Jesus. Instead of taking them to Jesus, he goes to Andrew and he says, what about these guys over here? Maybe he remembered when Jesus told them they were to go after the lost sheep of Israel first. Well, see, things changed. Things were beginning to evolve, and a lot of the lost sheep of Israel were neglecting or rejecting Jesus. So he took those Greeks to Andrew, and Andrew, being Andrew, took them right on to Jesus. And of course, Andrew was the one that brought up found the little boy with the fishes and the loaves back over in chapter 6. But so he went up there and took them to Andrew, but he didn't have enough, I guess, courage or whatever to go on and take them straight to Jesus. Now I'm fixing to finish up because I'm running out of time. The last time that we're told anything about Philip by name in the Bible was in chapter 14, and this was in the upper room during after Passover supper, and Jesus was telling them all the last time that he was about what was fixing to happen, and this was about the time that Jesus washed their feet, and he was doing his best to get them ready. And I'm going to read 2 verses here in chapter 14 of John. Said, and he's talking to the disciples here. Said, if ye had known me, you should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye know him and have seen him. And Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. In other words, that'll be good enough for us. And Jesus saith unto him, have I been so long with you, and you hast not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? Jesus was still teaching all the way up to the end. Now, like I said, I struggled to find something really that stood out about Philip. Well, I'm going to tell you what stands out to me right now. These were 12 ordinary men, and Jesus chose them from different walks to be the ones who were to carry forward after his death and to pretty much tell the world they were the main ones. There were a lot of other disciples out there other than this group here, and we know about Judas. So really there were 11 of them at that point in time that were to carry his gospel forward into the world. And now all of them had idiosyncrasies and little things that held them back. But why did Jesus choose them? Well, I don't know. But why did he choose me? Why did he choose you? So what we need to do is the best we can to be in the Word, to walk with the Lord, and tell somebody about Jesus. And if you don't know him, today is the day of salvation. I love you. This is Wednesday night. As far as I know, there'll be services at God's Healing Springs Baptist Church tonight at 7 o'clock. Y'all have a good day.